Yeah, should I bring up a bit of a situational assessment where I am with that journey?
Absolutely. Well, there's no there's no script here. I have total trust that what emerges through you connects with what I've shared, and something um, even more marvelous will be synthesized in the encounter. So let's see what that might be.
Right. Okay. So I did just this morning put some bullet on a slide just to help me navigate because there is so much floating in my mind at the moment, and sometimes it's like when you traverse a certain terrain. It's okay. So what is the trail you're actually gonna try and take? So I said, yeah, let's try and do with Jeff some kind of a situational assessment. And the first bullet for a situational assessment is what I framed as deepening the work on the blue indigo climb of the mountain of the epoch culmination. So we have spoken a couple of months ago how the journey unfolded. And I shared with you some of the work in the blue zone of the mountain. And obviously we're using here the mountain as a metaphor. But so let me step back and put it in the broader context. Because curiously, you just spoke to the idea of the collective interior. So we're telling a story, we're using a story, and you can listen to and internalize the story as a metaphor, or you can use it and listen to it and internalize it more than a metaphor, more as a metaphysical architecture that shapes events, or you can go all the way to internalizing the story much closer to a literal dimension in the sense of seeing the dimensions that we are describing as shaping and influencing the manifest realm. And you can be anywhere you like on that continuum. There is no dogma, there is no any indoctrination that you must take it one way or the other. So to ground us in the story, again, poetically imagine that we are envisioning that this beautiful planet we call Earth is a nursery for intelligent life in the universe. Okay? And that humanity here is actually on an assignment. And the assignment is to be the universal nursery, the universal laboratory, the universal workshop for intelligent life to refine itself, to test different machinery, to test different faculty and so on, such that both at the individual unit and at the collective unit, we refine something that's safer for the universe at large. Because the idea is that this planetary realm is a sandbox. I'm mixing my metaphors because I'm allowing for the broadest possible range. I'm seeking to allow the broadest possible range as to whether you choose to embrace this metaphorically, metaphysically, or literally. And so the premise being that in this sandbox, we get to play in the low or reduced or diluted power realms. In other words, when two humans get into conflict, well, you know, they can throw mud at each other. But if you went to a place where there is a much higher power concentrate, right, the conflict of two entities in galactic terms could be represented in a major explosion. So if the universe need to have, if the idea of intelligent life is to test how, for example, we transcend polarizations, to just build on what you were describing, you want to practice the software, the operating system of that developmental process of needing to grapple with differences and with diversities and with polarizations in these diversities, to find and build the safe process technology and energetic architecture that enable an intelligent being to integrate and transcend these kind of polarizing energies. The place to practice that is in a low power environment, because again, if you're in a high power environment, the risk is much higher and everything could be lost. So this planetary realm is partly designed in this mythopoetic story as a place where your mistakes cost you either nothing or little, or at least they don't risk the totality of the experiment. Admittedly, humanity has reached in recent centuries the unlock of power, as in the example of the nuclear and the hydrogen bomb, where you could say we are now endangering the planetary game altogether. And this is, if you like, again, metaphorically or more than metaphorically, an indication of how we have been on the increase of power realms. And so this is just the first grounding, that if you look at this planetary arena as the nursery of intelligent life. And then we're telling a story where the epochal progression plays with those sevenfold potencies. And we use the rainbow, and you can again take it as a metaphor or a metaphysical framework or a literal structure of consciousness. Well, so the rainbow in the simplest sense we recognize is a manifested, visible expression of sunlight, but in this poetic story we tell, we will say a sun-level intelligence that is expressed with light when it encounters the planetary realm and its elements of water and such. So, and the refraction or the breakdown of the white light into 7 wavelengths that are identified could be described as a program, as a step-by-step development process where the human system or the intelligent being that's being developed, that you describe as the collective interior of humanity, go through those 7 stages. And each of those potencies, each of those, the septenary of potencies, they have a functional responsibility or a functional purpose. And in this case, again, we are not talking about the 7 as hierarchical stages of development. We are more looking at those as fractals of potency that reoccurs through the development of the epochal journey. And we take here the idea of an epochal journey to represent the metaphor that if this is a nursery, then through an epoch, we get to use up and build a certain progression of the human model. and when we culminate or when we graduate from that epochal journey, then potentially there is a release of the next new development model. So that's just in the background. And so we have spoken about the idea of red as the beginning of the rainbow to represent the instigating impulse, the purpose of why something will begin, the purpose in our case of why will human life appear in this planetary realm. If you choose to go along with a metaphoric story that we're not just here to enjoy, although that is a great, wonderful part of the journey, that we actually get to enjoy this life, we actually also get to participate in the experiment and the development and the conscious testimony of the product of the life in the way we individually experience it and in the way that is proffered into the collective experience. So red being the impulse of why would the human go through this experience in the planetary realm. Red being the instigating reason and purpose. Orange, we explored in the idea of the expansion, the opening of the range that, and the instantiation, and the expression that expand into the greater possible range of that instigating reason. And yellow, we explored and touched in our previous conversations, presented a sense of realignment and the sense of that conscious being seeking to engage with what was presented through the axial revolution and into the rise of classic religions, the search for higher power that would center the human consciousness on something other than itself and will codify for it certain behaviors and so on. And so that's, if you like, a very brief, almost too abbreviated comment on the red, orange, yellow in the way they appear through the early stages of that epochal journey. And then we explored the function of green as an epochal potency that reappears every time the epoch gets tired and exhausted. That is, humanity gets depleted and diminished in its capacity to rise to its greater potential. And so we see through the wash of the 3,000 years that we are tracing, that every once in a while there is a resurgence of new knowledge, of new institutions of knowledge, of new exploration of what can rejuvenate human life and what can move it on from and through the sublimation of the barbaric nature of animalistic life to more refined, more of the discovery of even chivalrous competition instead of murderous and barbarous destruction of who will kill who first, where we discover competition that's rule-based, leading all the way to the idea of the Olympic movement and how that became a focusing event for humanity, in that we're still using very much the physical, the body part, if you like, the animal part of life, with that rule-based sublimation that we promote the best of each other on a in and through the discovery of competing with each other.